Well, I have on a different colored shirt. It must mean a new week. It is the fourth week, and we are on day 16 of our journey through the Bible. I want to remind you that the whole point of this study is not simply to help us learn and memorize a bunch of new Bible facts, but it is to discover and to experience how God uses the Bible to transform and change our lives. We've been talking about a way to do that, simply looking at these people that the Bible speaks of in these historical narratives and looking at the facts of their life and then considering how that applies to us. Let's do Abraham that way this morning. Abraham is a classic example of the way God works. He blesses us, and then after the blessing, almost inevitably, there will be a test. If we pass the test, He blesses us further. If we fail the test, He teaches us some more, and then He tests us again. And He keeps on testing us until we pass the test and move on. I think God uses that principle in just about all of our lives. Let's consider again the story of Abraham and how that works. Well, the first big test, of course, was when God comes to Abraham and says, I want you to leave the place of your birth and travel, trust me, follow me, and I'm going to lead you to the place that I'm going to show you. You know, one of the things that archaeology and the studying of these ancient worlds has brought to light is not to take away from the Bible, but to actually add to it. We now realize from archaeological studies that when in the times of Abraham, when you were born into a community, that was your community generally for life. And if you ever left that place, if you renounced that place by leaving, you could never come back. You could never be a citizen there again. And no matter where you would go to, you could never expect to be anything but a stranger in that new place in which you were going to live. It was an enormous step of faith for Abraham to follow God as he did. Well, he passes that test and he gets to the land of Canaan, and God says, I'm going to give you all of this place that is going to be yours. All this land, I give it to you. But then there's another test. Remember when God had told Abraham to leave, He says, I want you to leave behind all of your relatives. Don't bring any of them with you. That test, that part of the faith, Abraham didn't pass. He and Sarah didn't have children. That meant he had no heir in which whatever wealth he had to give it to anyone. So he brings along his nephew Lot as someone who could be passed down to all the stuff that he has. Because he fails that test, it will cost him greatly, often through the future. Well, another test that God gives Abraham is when a famine sweeps over the land. One of the names of God is the name Yahweh Yireh. That is, the God who provides, or more literally, the God who will see to it. The test is, Abraham, in this time of famine, will you trust me that I can provide for you even in times of famine in this place? That I can see to your needs? Abraham did not pass that test. He grabs his household up, goes off to Egypt because there's food there. But when he gets there, there's another test. And that is the test of what to do with his wife Sarah. She was evidently a very beautiful woman, but that immediately put Abram in a very dangerous position. At least he perceived that it was. Men would want Sarah as their own, and to do that, they would kill her husband, and then she would be available. And so Abraham passes himself off as Sarah's sister only. And, when it's done, he really humiliates himself, and as, again, Ralph Neighbor says in his notes about this, he gets his passport stamped in Egypt. Don't come back here. Abraham returns to the land that God had given him, and there he builds an altar, and there he worships the Lord. Abram had a good heart. Abram had a heart that was clearly signs of God at work in him. He was just kind of a slow learner. Remind you of anybody? Take a good look at the mirror in the morning. God gives Abraham a makeup test on Lot. There comes an opportunity where Lot's particular family had grown very large, and anyway, the long and short of it is greedy Lot takes the possession of what appears to be the best lands, the best opportunities, and Abraham simply lets him do that. And God turns around and says, good on you, Abraham. Everything that your eye can see, believe me, I'm going to give all that land to you. And then there was another test that God gave Abraham. He told Abraham, he promised him, I'm going to give you a son. But he ends up having to wait, and boy, does Abraham mess that test up. I won't go into all the details today, but it's still echoing through world history. Ishmael was the result of a flunked test. And finally, when Isaac comes, he is the blessing that test is finally passed. There will be more about this in the notes that are below this video, and we'll talk more about it in the days ahead. But I simply ask you, as you consider Abraham's life, what does your journey look like? Why do we have to learn just about everything the hard way? The scripture I want to read today is, again, from Abraham's story. We'll pick up again in Genesis chapter 12. I begin reading with verse 10. Now there was a famine in the land. So Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, and that if it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. And when Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful, and the princes of Pharaoh saw her. They praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake he dealt well with Abram. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now, then here is your wife, take her and go. Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. So Abram went up from Egypt, and he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with them to the Negev. Then Abram was very rich in livestock and silver and in gold, and he journeyed on from the Negev as far as Bethel to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made that altar at the first. And there Abram called upon the name of the Lord.